Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Campaign Terrain. If you're coming back, welcome back to Campaign Terrain. Always glad to have you, whether you're first time or 100th time. Either way, don't care. Glad to have you. Tonight, I'm working on the ship, kind of. I'm doing things that will then be used on the ship, but I'm not actually building on the ship. I was going to do something else tonight, but someone earlier today asked me about not only hot wire cutters, but specifically the Proxxon hot wire cutter, which I happen to own one of. So I was going to show that person who was, oh, good, you're here. Lucy Collected is here. That's who I'm talking to. I'm talking to you, buddy. You and everybody else. Everybody else. I'm showing you the foibles that the machine has. Now, I don't like the machine. Nothing to do with Proxxon. Mine was a limit. It had like multiple things wrong with it from the very beginning that I had to fix before I could ever even use it. I am positive that I got the weird one out of the box because that's the kind of thing that literally just happens to me. So that's fine, but there are some things that happen with all of them, and so I'm going to talk about those, and we'll get to it in a minute. So I don't actually have too much. Normally I go through like what I call my house cleaning, which is everything I've done for the week and set up. I have some stuff on the ship, which let me talk about that first. And I guess everything I've got to talk about is about the ship tonight. It's just random spots. Okay, so I have gotten, nope, getting out of order there. Let me grab the ship. Okay, you should be able to hear me. So sorry I'm off screen and looking like I'm not here, but I'm here. All right, I'm only grabbing the top 2 decks because I don't really need the other two for this. Actually, technically this is top 3 decks, but you get what I'm saying. Top 2 platforms. Okay, since last week's show, I have I'm going to switch back and forth between my cameras. So let me switch to this one over here. Y'all know the deal. I'm going to switch to the right-hand camera, turn on the light. It's going to be a big flash for just a second, and then it'll calm back down. So let me get to that. And then I can jump into it. All right. Okie dokie. So let's get into what we are doing here. So last week I worked on part of the railing on the back deck. I now have the entire thing done. I put all those little push pins along the side. I crafted I glued the piece here, bent it over nicely and gingerly with my finger, got it shaped right before I started gluing it down. I glued to the corner, cut it at a 45. The ship's not square, so close to a 45-degree angle. Then I did the other side the same way, and then I cut one to fit in between them. I ran out of all the pretty colored ones, but I have a whole bunch of the clear ones now. Thank you, Digital Calibrator. DC, one of my patrons, helped me with that. And so I have a bunch more push pins, and I probably used about 100 because I think that box had 200, and I used a significant chunk of those. So I have completed this. I did not use real wood for the top deck like I said I was going to in last week's video. I went ahead and crafted it into the shapes of the boards. This one, I don't know if you can see, but I have already textured it with a wire brush, and I have not done that on this one. I realized it and could have fixed that, but I figured I'd show you how easy it is. This is all it takes to texture this like lumber. Ignore the point where I messed up my, yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, and you want to take a wire brush, brass or steel, doesn't matter. Not plastic. The plastic won't actually press anything into it. And first, let me show you. This is really smooth running this way. And the part I've already done, you can see it with one drag of the brush across it. You can see maybe that there's a wood grain sort of in there. So all I'm doing is taking that and dragging it with the direction the wood grain would be going. Now, you're going to get little dust bits and foam everywhere, so be careful. And your brush is going to fill up. How you clean your brush is up to you. There's like 30 different ways to do it. I have found a couple that work for me, but that doesn't mean they'll work for you. So all I'm doing to texture this is just dragging this along in the direction of the lumber, not the direction of the edge of the railing. Not the edge of the railing, it's the railing of the railing. And you don't want to go in one long stroke for 2 reasons. One, the wire will start to get deeper into the foam and potentially rip it. And it just makes a better texture if some of the grain runs this way and some runs this way and some runs this way rather than just one long stripe. So that's all I'm doing here. This will only take about 10 more seconds. Don't time me on that, because I think it's actually going to be done faster than that. And I need to make sure to get near the edge. And then now that foam's going to get everywhere, like I said. So just be careful of that. Don't go breathing that in. As Craftsman sings, don't forget to wear your dust mask. Okay, so that's that. Now, I have decided arbitrarily, just because, that this cabin here is going to be the galley. Normally the galley would be at the back, but I'm already going to have several other things in there, and I'm not going to try to make it look like a galley in there. This is not going to have anything else taking up this space, so this will become my galley. At some point, I will be cutting holes through these walls, just like I did for the doors, except I'll be putting windows in there. No portholes on this deck, but maybe lower they'll be round like a porthole. But in my fantasy world, there's no cannons, so yeah, so I don't have to worry about that. I can do my windows however I want. It's a fantasy world that I'm making up as I go along. So, let me show you what I got. I keep losing track of myself because I keep getting to the point where what I'm actually talking about tonight, which I'm not to that point yet. So, I needed to have stable rigging. So, I need masts. So, you can't see them. They're only... No, they're significantly above the... Anyway, they are this long. Why? That's the length of dowel I had left. That's literally the reason. All right, so what I did, since all of my masts line up through correctly, I measured how far it was from this edge of this loading space where the crane's eventually going to lower cargo through. Not a functional crane. It'll just be for demonstrative purposes and for playability. About 3/4 of an inch on the center line, the beam, to the middle of this thing. I didn't get it particularly close. I got it kind of, sort of, mostly close. Good enough. I drilled a hole and then a slightly larger hole and then a slightly larger hole until I got it the size of the dowel I was going to use. What size is this? I don't know. 1/4 inch maybe? 4 mil, 5 mil? I don't know, something. And all I did is make sure that I drilled far enough out that would fit in there. I then drilled the bottom of the other mast. This one's a bad example because this hot glue the glue has picked up foam. In the meantime, I need to trim that out real quick so that it doesn't matter which mast I put where, because the other one doesn't have this. So what I'm doing now is trimming this off, but I'm doing that off screen here just because it's easier. Okay, so just doing a little cleanup on this. Okay, so now that that's flatter, that'll go in either hole. One hole probably has a little dent, but that's fine. All right, sorry, I just bumped my mic. Apologies if that was loud. Okay, so then what I did is I took the dowel and stuck it into the mast, the top part of the mast, and glued it in. I know that this hole, I looked at it on the drill bit, so I know roughly how deep this hole is. I made the pegs a little bit shorter. They stick out about 1.25 inches. That doesn't matter as long as it fits. You want it long enough that it'll be stable, but you want it short enough that it doesn't go like all the way into the next deck down. So those, I then measured the same distance and used the same size drill just with my hand and drilled holes for the dowels in the 2 decks, or the 2 spots in the deck. So now when that all lines up, these posts go all the way through this upper deck and into the hole in the mast below, and the whole thing is relatively sturdy. Now there's going to be some rigging and stuff added to the mast later, so it will be sturdier. But for now, that's what we got. So, what I was going to work on tonight was there's going to be a mechanical space in here where the tiller would drive the ropes and pulleys and such to make the rudder spin. I'm not going to make that mechanically functional because 2 reasons. 1, I'm just not going to do it. That would be a pain in the butt. And 2, it's going to be built on 3 decks and they come apart. And there's no way I'm going to try to make those things mesh into each other in addition to functioning. So I'm just going to basically create a space for that. I will have all that measured out and everything for next week. I was going to do that for tonight, but instead I'm going to make some lumber that I will be using for that later because of the question somebody had about the hot wire cutter earlier. Let me get this mouse out of the way and this dowel out of the way. And this entire ship out of the way. Give me just a second. Okay. As I said, I'm going to have rigging soon. So that's masts and ropes and rat lines and, excuse me, various other things. So one of the things, of course, is going to be sails. I randomly came across this fabric. It doesn't matter how I got it. It's free. Somebody wasn't using it anymore. So I thought that stripy stripes might be nice for sails or for market stalls. So these fabrics will probably get used. This one will probably get used for market stalls, and this one here will probably get used for sails. Now I'm not really excited about this because this is a plastic fabric, not a cotton or hemp fabric. So I'd rather use something like this, but I think my stripes are going to be, I have multiple other fabrics, so I'm still deciding, but I think this may be my stripes. This may be my sails. My sails will be furled. That means drawn up. They will not be spread out like a ship under sail because this thing is designed to always be in port when I'm using it. I'm not doing naval battles. I'm doing port things. Okay, now let's get to the meat of the matter. First off, let me move this over. You can see that this thing takes up significant space. That's why I'm not doing anything except dealing with this machine tonight. Let me read the comments here and then I'll get around to what we're doing here. Plotting, scanning, waiting to jump tonight, plus slept on and off all day. Yeah, I slept all day, but I still feel, y'all are, not that y'all are lucky, y'all don't have to be here, but I feel lucky to be here. I am 110% not feeling it yet. I had this opportunity to strike while the iron was hot and talk about this machine on the same day that LC asked about it, Loosely Collected asked about it in a different in somebody else's live stream earlier today. Excuse me, I apologize, but I don't have a way to really mute the mic. Allergies. So, hate the fence on mine. Yeah, the fence is one of the things I'm going to talk about. And I've molded it to be taller as well as a second bar to keep it from wiggling. Yep. Okay, so that's a big thing. That's on all of them. So the fence that comes on the Proxen is this thing, and it is an absolute piece of junk. It is the worst part of the Proxen. For people that have a Proxen, they take it out of the box and it works perfect the first time, which was not my experience, but is normal. The normal experience with this thing is still a piece of junk. It is wiggly, like this, back and forth, and this piece wants to slide back and forth. Now, there is a wheel right here that will tighten it so that it gets less wiggly, but I don't typically use that. So what I have done is I have set it as close to 90 degrees as I can get it. I have taped things to make it more stable, and I have tightened everything down so that it will fit in this front groove. I say front, that's front to the camera. It's actually kind of on the side. And it is just short enough to clear the wire so that I can push things across and get a relatively straight cut. But as far as the actual fence, I built my own, and I'm about to show you all how I did that. Not how I did it, but the end result of that. Mine is made out of various plastic brick. Some of y'all know them as Lego. Some of y'all know them as Mega Block. I think I have, this is mostly Lego, but I think I've got some Kobe in here, some other ones. I am not sworn allegiance to Lego like some people. So I built the fence and I built a wall with a support structure behind it. And I just sort of made it so that would work. On the flat part on the bottom where all these bricks are really right angles, so it makes this kind of easy. On the part where it's super flat, I put one width wide piece here. This is just about 11 millimeters, just a little over a centimeter, I think. Maybe it's 9 and it's just under, whatever. It fits into these grooves. It does not want to slide particularly well, but once you've got it moved into place and set, I then also use tape on the back to secure it because this end still wants to wiggle a little just from the play in the plastic bricks. Now, I originally made it just out of the brick, but very promptly, you can see it because I flipped some of them around, started to melt some of these bricks with the hot wire. So even though this is ABS plastic and is designed to take a lot of heat, that wire can get super hot. So what I did was slap a piece of MDF on the front because as you can see that gets discolored by the wire, but I don't care because that's not going to melt and deform. So I've still got a flat, smooth surface. Worst case scenario, it eventually gets a little crusty in here and the pieces start to flake out, at which point I can just swap it out because I put it together with double stick tape. And you can take double stick tape off with like alcohol or mineral spirits and it comes right off. So that is my fence. Now, the Proxxon is designed so that you adjust the up and down cutting angle by moving this shuttle back and forth. You loosen this side wheel, you move this to where you want, and then you lock it in place. So with their fence, that's never an issue because it's so low to the ground that you pretty much have clearance as long as you're cutting anything more than about a centimeter, half-inch wide. So this one I cannot do that with because this sits this high. I cannot cut back at that angle like that. If I did, I would have to do something weird and funky to where I basically put it around this way, move the thing out of the way, cut against the wrong fence. And I basically, if I need something cut at an angle, that's when I pull out my knife because it happens so rarely, I'm not going to need it for that. Okay, so what I'm doing tonight is I am making faux lumber. That means I need flat pieces that I can then scrape with that same wire brush again to make it look like lumber, and those will get incorporated into the mechanicals box as you will see next week or the week after. So I have this old piece. It doesn't matter what you have. The only reason I'm showing is that if you have a lumpy bumpy piece like this one, I made lumpy and bumpy and then didn't need to use it for that, so I'm going to trim this flat. To do that, I'm going to set this with about a millimeter. I'm just guessing, I'm just eyeballing, it doesn't matter. About a millimeter back from that wire and pressing my little runner piece in, clearing the dust off of my plate here and pressing the tape down in the back. You can't really see that, but trust me, I'm doing that. And that will stop this side of the fence from moving around. Now, I have a foot pedal for mine. I call it a foot pedal. You'd think it would be called a foot pedal. They call it apparently the speed switch or something like that. So, but if you look up Proxxon pedal, you'll find one. Absolutely get one. If you're getting a Proxxon, get the pedal. They don't need, it does not come with them. You'll have to buy one separately. There is a competitor to the Proxxon that looks exactly the same. It comes in blue, and it is called a Hercules. It is basically identical. It has a pedal that's included with it, but its pedal only works with the Hercules. It's got a different plug back here, and it's proprietary, so it only works with that. The pedal for the Proxxon will not only work with anything else you need a pedal for, but if you have a pedal that's a generic one that works for like a sewing machine or something like that, you can use that on here. Now, I'm talking about about American, United States, US-Adian, North American plugs, because I have no idea how they work in other countries. But the one in the United States, the pedal is generic enough that I could use it with other things, or I could use a pedal from something else with it. I happen to buy one with it, so it's the same weird green as this, etc. But as you can see, okay, let me show you all the controls. That turns it on and off. Normally a little red light would come on here, but that's when you hit it with the pedal. This is a loosening tension knob for when you're changing out the wire. We can skip that for tonight unless I break a wire. And this is the temperature control. I'm going to start at it goes from 1 to 6. So technically 3.5 is halfway, but I'm going to start at about a 3 and then see if I need more after that. Now, you should be wearing a mask on this, but I don't know if y'all can hear it because I tuned my audio, so you shouldn't be able to, but I have a fan really close, so you'll see my vapors either go straight up off of this or somewhere off that way past me. I should be wearing a mask, but I'm not going to. Don't do what I'm doing. Do what I'm telling you. So I am going to, this is a very narrow gap right here between this wire and this board, and I'm going to use it to push this. Now, let me show you. When I push the pedal, you'll see the little light come on. It heats up almost immediately, and it cools off just as immediately. So that light comes on when I push the pedal. If you don't have it, you'll have to worry about turning it off, turning it back on, whatever. And trust me, this wire gets hot, and you can leave marks on your, I don't know if I've still got it, but somewhere I've got a line across one of my thumbs. I'll cut myself this week, so just ignore that. That wire gets hot. It's called a hot wire for a reason. All right, so now let's get around to actually, doing something. All right. So what I'm doing is literally just driving this into that, following that fence. As I do that, because I'm cutting such a small piece off of this, what it does is it makes this little wafer of stuff. I keep stuff like this and use it in my rubble piles and that sort of thing. Now, this is just this one little ridge. I don't think I'm going to keep that one. That's probably not worth keeping, but whatever. Each one after this will be a little bit fatter, and you'll see what I'm doing. Once I get to the point where it's making larger, I'm basically taking off the lumpy, bumpy edge. You'll see. I could do this with a larger gap at a time, but I do have a use for wafer thin pieces later. Yes, he's wafer thin. And I have a use for wafer thin pieces for a later project. So I will be using these for a thing. Actually not putting up too many vapors today. Oh, if you are having to press hard, turn your heat up. If it's melting like round holes or too wide a gap in your foam, turn your heat down. By that, I mean that little volume knob thing I showed you. Right now, right at 3, actually it's a bit over 3, so like 3.10 on mine right now. And I have use for these little wafers, so that's fine with me. Now, I've gotten that pretty much down to where anything else is just, it doesn't need to come off. So now what I'm gonna do is take off one of these sides and pick whichever one I think is already smoother, and I'm gonna smooth it down, and then you'll see why in a moment, because then I will switch sizes here in a second. So some people tune their hot wire, they get it so taut that it goes boink when you pluck it. I think I accidentally did tonight. You do not have to, but it's not really gonna hurt anything. But you don't have to do that. But you do want it tight enough that it doesn't hang in an arc, because that piece can move back and forth and give you a really crummy cut when you're doing it. So you do want it taut, but it doesn't have to be guitar string tight. I see that y'all are writing in the comments. So let me cut this and one more little wafer off of here, and then I will read the comments. Okay, now I've used a square before. In my case, I used what's called a speed square. Y'all have seen me use that on other things. That's those gray metal ones I've used before to get my string, wire, whatever, vertical. It's pretty close. And I can also tell because it's running parallel to my fence. And I know that my fence sits at a right angle because of the plastic bricks. Now, the reason I'm using this one and not one of the other, I know that this already has some like holes that are already torn through it. And so I'm going to work around that as we go later, because the pieces of lumber that I'm going to need from this only need to be about that long. So I should be able to work around those holes. Let me get this other wafer cut off of here, and then I'll read the chat again. So again, you don't really want your wire bowed, but it doesn't have to be guitar tight. Let's see. Yeah, anywhere close to an accurate and consistent cut. Yeah, now if it's a little bit off, what you can do, and I got this from Gerard Boom from Shifting Lands, is you can cut through one way, like cut this way, and then flip it back the other way, because that way if it's off vertical on the Proxon, each of those will like counter, it doesn't cascade the angle. Because if you keep cutting the same slight angle piece, even if you start with a squared off piece, but it's slightly tilted, eventually you're going to end up with your piece being more and more and more and more and more, because it's cutting actually slight triangles or shims off it. But if you keep flipping it like this as you do it, you will not have that issue. So flip it endwise and such. You'll see me do that in just a second. Yeah, hot is, every single Proxon is different. It's just, you're never going to get 2 electrical coils or 2 transformative coils that work that like in the mechanicals underneath here, the electronicals under here. It's not electronic, the electrics under here. You're never going to get them exactly, precisely, perfectly the same. Some will be the same, but it'll just be that they randomly got close to the same. Because of that, you're just going to kind of have to play with it. So I'm going to say always start right about the middle if you're using XPS or EPS or XPS foam. EPS is the stuff with the little bubbles and beads in it, like you see in a lot of like food packaging. XPS is the stuff more for insulation, which is the solid foam, but they're both made out of styrene. And I would say start at a 3.5, make a test cut. Don't make your final cut you're needing done on the first go, or that's going to end in tears. So you want to get close to the right temperature. And then, as I said, if it's cutting too much and you can clearly tell it's melting the styrene or anything like that, you've got it too hot. Turn it down a little. If you've got it, if it's not cutting and you're having to push against the wire and the wire's fighting you, it's not hot enough. On the Proxon, it is labeled correctly, in my view, that hotter temperatures are higher numbers. Some of the other brands and models and makes with all sorts of different, there's about 100 different style brands of these. Some of them, the numbering system's backward. So just pay attention for your particular model. Yeah, the generic on-off foot switch from Harbor Freight works on the Proxon. If you had I forgot the name of the other one, Hercules, it would not. So, yeah. DC's lurking on the other screen while playing some long dark. Excellent. Did you see the part at the beginning, DC, where I showed off the things I did with the push pins you helped me get? If not, it's at the beginning of this. You can go back and watch it later or whatever, or you can come to the Discord. I posted some pictures there, or I can just send them to you later. All right, so... All right, so now what I'm going to do is I want the boards that I'm going to be using to be about 1 centimeter. I don't care. About a 1/2 inch. It's a centimeter is obviously 10 millimeters. A 1/2 inch is 12.27 millimeters. I'm not trying to get it 12.27 millimeters. I'm just going for either a centimeter. And the reason I'm going a centimeter instead of 1/2 inch when I normally work in Imperial is that the Proxon is printed, made up, constructed with metric. So it makes it easy for this. So what I'm doing is I'm loosening the tape on the back, wiggling it loose from its little slider thing, because as I said, it doesn't really want to slide. And if you're recording your long dark, DC, I'll probably go watch it later. If you're not, oh, that's fine too. I do like watching you play long dark. It's very chill, very soothing. So, okay. So now I have moved this to where I'm at the 1 centimeter mark behind the wire. And now I'm going to cut these long planks off of here. And as I said, I'm going to do, this one's the flat side. So what I'm going to do is okay. I'll show you in a second. Let me get this one cut. Okay, so I got a big chunky plank. Get that in a minute. Now, what I was saying earlier is you can flip it this way and do it, but I don't have a flat side on that side, so I've just got this little ridge to set it against. So I'm not actually balancing it on this ridge so much as I'm pressing it tight against the fence, and I'm hoping that's good enough. For what I'm doing, for the tiny little pieces I'm doing, and the fact that a bad angle is not going to matter, I'm not that worried about it. If I was doing something really, really, really precise, like an architectural model or something like that, I would be doing this in a whole different way anyway, because I wouldn't have started with these lumpy, bumpy bits. Okay, now on your last pass, it can get really scary because you don't want your finger too close to that. I'm telling you, if your finger is a millimeter off of that wire, you're fine. You're fine, because it doesn't have the heat to get through the foam at you. So I'm just going to put my hand on this foam and run it through and have no fear of it hurting me. Now, if you are so close that you are cutting to the depth where the foam is actually getting cut through and your hand might touch the wire directly, you're probably going to want a push stick or something. Okay, so now I have 3 of these good sized planks. So these are a centimeter thick within microns. So I want centimeter by centimeter boards. So I actually want 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch boards, but yeah, well, we're not doing that today. Okay, so then, again, these all have 2 flat sides, so now I can do the thing I was telling you earlier. So I'm going to take that, and actually, I'm going to go ahead and texture the surfaces of these first. I'll still have to do the other side that I cut, but this way I can get this done faster than if I'm having to do it one little piece at a time. So let me and it goes from smooth and flat and shiny to faux wood grain that easily. Would that take 3 seconds per board or per plank? Maybe 5? One. Leaves 2 left. Oh, in the middle, you don't want to always start from the same spot, or you're going to end up with a very clear line on that, and that can be a problem. With what I'm doing tonight, it probably wouldn't, but let's just, if you do the problem-solving parts in advance, you never have to worry about it at the end. So I have no idea what that sounds like through the mic, so either that's some ASMR and y'all are really enjoying it, or it's like grading on a chalkboard. I have no idea. Okay, again, you're going to end up with all sorts of foam and stuff in here. I bound mine against a piece of board, and it knocks most of the stuff loose, and I move on with life. I don't worry about it, but there's all sorts of ways you can clean it. Now, those plastic cut edges make it a little more firm, and then the moment you scratch into it, you get the little grooves, you can actually feel that it's a little more flexible this way. That is not going to matter for what I'm doing, but keep that in mind if you're building something where you need it to be structural. By structural, I mean support weight, not just look like a structure. Okay, oops, my pedal is sliding away from me. Hold on a second. Okay. Okay. So these are a centimeter wide along this edge, and now I'm cutting them in centimeter strips, so I end up with basically a square plank. A square, what is the word I'm looking for? It's not a plank when it's square. It's whatever. As you can see, basically a square piece. Now, this is 2/3 of what you're doing if you're trying to make square tiles, because then you would take those, set them to the depth you want for the tiles, and go over 100 times to, hack through the things that we're not doing that tonight. So, as I said, if this is not going to matter if they get at slight angles, but as I said, if you're worried about the angle, you can then flip it lengthwise and cut it that way. So I'm going to keep doing that because best practices and all that. Whoa, didn't like going through that hole. It suddenly jumped. As I said, there's some holes drilled in this XPS already, or punched through. They weren't really drilled, and it didn't like going through that. That was that weird little doink noise you heard, but that shouldn't be an issue through most of the foam here. let me finish this plank, this plank into these, whatever these other pieces are. Excuse me. And then I'll read the comments again. Ooh, my thumb is a little close to that. Let's not burn myself. I've already cut my other thumb this week. Let's not burn this one. Okay, now, if you're worried about the foam, about the wire getting too close to you and hurting you, now there's plenty of room on there, but just in case, you can always take another piece of, any other piece of foam or whatever, and press it against that and use that as a stabilizer to push that against the back fence. Here, I've got like 3 or 4 millimeters. It wouldn't have burned me. I would have been fine. I'm just showing you. Okay, and as I said, all these little offcuts, I keep those for different projects. So this is the part I wanted to end up with. Basically a square. All right, what we got? It depends on what you're cutting. 3/8 to 5/8 is a good cut, depending. But again, if you're trying to make a small architectural model and you need it to look perfect, and you want it to look, then that's a whole different issue than I'm slapping together an ancient pirate ship in a fantasy world. No worries, DC, about missing that. I will. I've posted the pictures to the to this channel's Discord, but I can post them. No, I posted them to the other one. I posted them to the other Discord you and I share. So you should have seen them. It's the same ones in there. You can see them in that. I forgot I posted them over there. So yeah, you can go look at them on that Discord, and you'll see them. But it worked like a champ. I mean, I already knew it was. It would. I knew it would the first time I saw it in that other person's video. I wish I could remember who taught me that. I saw that in somebody's video. I can't take any credit for the using the push pins as balusters. That is not my idea. Somebody else came up with that, and I do not remember whom. If I did, I would absolutely give them credit. But I saw how well it worked for them and knew immediately it would work for me if I ever needed railings. And as soon as I started building a ship, I was like, you know what? Yeah, it worked just like I thought it would. So excellent. Love when a plan comes together, etc. Okay. Sometimes when you're getting close to being done with what you're doing for the moment, you get really anxious and want to be like, I'm just going to shove these through. But if you do that, you're going to end up making wonky cuts. And yeah, just don't. Okay, now this has a big divot in it. When I cut it out, I'm just going to work around that. I'm not cutting just to here or anything like that. I'm just working with it. Plus, that can make it look like a rough hewn board anyway. So that might work in my interest on some builds. On this one, I probably won't do that because a ship is a more precise instrument than, say, a peasant hut or a pigsty. So I will probably not use that weirdly shaped piece in this build, but I could. Okay, and in case any of y'all missed it earlier, I said that I am 110% not feeling this, so I am probably not going to spend a long time online tonight. I seriously, about an hour and 15, hour and 20 before the show, I was seriously contemplating not doing it, but I was correctly told that, every time you get up and moving, you feel better after. And I'm like, I guess. I'm not sure that I feel better so much as I'm just riding the momentum. But for right now, I'm going to get through this without any problem. But it probably will not go. I'm at 40 minutes right now. I will probably hit an hour tonight and stop. And part of that will just be me chatting with you in the meantime. Now, I'm going to be super crazy risky and use the piece that I just cut off as my piece to push this against the board because it's not going to cut it because it's far enough away from that wire. I'm just being overly cautious of properly cautious of my thumb because having cut my other thumb because I wasn't paying attention earlier this week. I'm a little, once bitten, twice shy and all that. Okay, so now I have a bunch of essentially 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter lumber. It's not planks and it's not lumber, but these things, but they've all been textured only on one side. So I'm just going to push this over a little bit out of my way, and I am going to texture all of the sides that don't have texture on them. And then I'm probably going to call it an evening. Now, I don't know if you can see, but there's a super shiny side on here, super shiny and flat and smooth. And then there's a side that's got that texture already put into it. And I am going to put that texture on this side and this side of all of these. As I said before, I didn't do it this time. That was dumb. You want to kind of drag the brush across. If you do it straight in too much, you get this weird jaggediness. But to be honest, once you've put a base coat of like a glue, paint with a glue in it, or something similar, it's literally not going to matter. All right. This is just one to cut. I think I'm going to switch to this brass brush over here. I'm just not liking the way that steel one's texturing this. Now, if you're using an actual piece of lumber, a piece of wood, I see people try to texture their lumber all of the time. We're talking about scale again. I know I talk about scale in like every other video. You don't have to texture lumber. In scale, to the little people, it's already got a grain. It's already pronounced. So making it more pronounced would make it look rotten or unprofessional to their eyes, which I realize we don't really care what the little plastic people care, I think. But I'm just saying, unless you're one of those people who believes Toy Story is real. So you don't have to texture real lumber, but I do feel that it adds something to, you don't want non-textured foamy lumber because it just can look really half done, plasticky and whatever. Okay, so what I'm doing now, I'm going to speed this up. I'm putting these so that all the shiny sides are up and stacking them together. And that way I can grain all of them at once. Because I realized that doing them one at a time was a pain in the, well, it wasn't really a pain. It didn't hurt anything, but it was slower. So now I'm going to take those and alrighty. Oops. I accidentally rotated that one, I think. No, I didn't. Okay. That's that side done. So let's see if I can manage to flip those without throwing them everywhere. Yep. Okay. Sometimes that works. Sometimes not so much. Okay. That was much faster. Much faster. Okay, so now I have, what is this, 15? I think it was 5 from each plank. Yeah, so now I've got 15 little pieces of lumber that I can now use to build my thingamy I'm building next week. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to take these and use them as 4 posts. And between those posts, I'm going to have foam core. And that foam core is going to be recessed back in to this. And then I'm using real lumber of these coffee stirrers, and I'm going to make it basically like a lap board. It's going to be, the lumber is going to run horizontally between the upright centimeter posts. So that is what I'm going to be doing for the mechanical boxes for next week. I may do that next week on the live stream. It depends on how I feel during the week. I have felt particularly crummy this whole week. So I may not get around to building anything on the ship between now and then. So, yeah. So now I am basically done for the evening. Let me get some foam out of that brush. There we go. All right, let me set this over here with my other little stockpile I never cleaned up over here. Oh, right. I forget to do the thing. YouTube likes you to say the words. It makes a little thing blink at the bottom. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're watching this live, after we're done, refresh the page. If you're watching this from the future, go ahead and leave a comment. That helps to drive the algorithm, makes more people come and see my channel, and they can learn, not learn, I'm not really teaching anything. They can play along with the home game, so to speak, of the of crafting and all that. Oh, and I forgot to ask, anybody crafting tonight? Y'all just hanging out? I ask that every time. Anybody crafting anything? I know, LC, you said you had been working on something earlier. All right, and let's see what we got going on in the Proxxon foam cutter is a great machine, allegedly. It seems to work for most people. Like I said, I had the one bad experience. I had to fix, literally, I had to fix 6 things on my machine coming out of the undamaged box straight from the factory when I got it. Mine is not the typical happenstance. I just have, it's typical for me. I have stuff like that all the time. It's well known I have gremlins. But in general, this is a perfectly functional machine. There are others that work just as well. The only reason that I suggest this one or the Hercules, which has all of the same sizes and everything except for the plug, the reason I suggest those two is because they have become sort of the industry standard, and there's lots of aftermarket parts you can get for them that just fit them. They just work with them and you're good to go. You don't have to cobble anything together or buy something that nobody else, you can't find a recommendation for because nobody else uses that machine. So I recommend this because so many people already use it. I don't recommend it just on its own laurels. It is functional, but it is not the best out there. I quite like the one that Trent from Miscast has. If nothing else, you can cut at an angle, both front and side, so you can cut funky, strange angles in one pass instead of having to do a pass, adjust it, and then do it again like you have to on the Proxxon. And the throat, the distance between the cut plate and the top of the wire. This piece on the Proxxon is not quite 6 inches. It's like 5 5/8, 5 3/4 and a bit. So you can't cut things at 6 inches and run them through because it's metric and I don't know. And Prince is much taller, but I don't know what brand it is. I think he just got it off of some cheap Chinese site. They have different issues getting materials and machinery down in Australia. So I do recommend the Proxxon. If you're like, oh, I don't know if I should get the Proxxon or not, then my recommendation for the price of the Proxxon, wait for it to go on sale because you can sometimes find it for less than $100 even with the pedal. But it is a little pricey. If you are not building things where you're using it like all the time, if I was doing it again, I would not get any hot wire cutter and I would do it all by hand with a knife. Having it, I'm happy I have it. But if I had it to do over again, I would not have dropped the money on this, if that helps. But otherwise, I mean, as far as it goes, it is fully functional. If you need a pickup, buy a pickup. If you need a tractor, buy a tractor. If you need a Proxxon, buy a Proxxon. It is a perfectly functional machine. What about tile? You have the question, DC, of tile, but I don't know what you're asking that about. About, can I make it with this? Timbers, yes, that is the word I was looking for. They are timbers. These are square stock timbers, not planks. Thank you. That was been driving me bonkers. Well, you would know that stuff if you'd ever been a carpenter. I was a carpenter for 15 years and I still forget things. So it's always good to have refreshers. Always good. Oh, no, these aren't tiles, but I see what you're saying. No, timbers is the word I was going for. But thank you, DC, for suggesting. Okay, so that's really all I've got tonight. I hate to cut it short under an hour. Anybody got any questions about the Proxxon or about timbers or about ships or building miniature ships or building miniatures? Anybody got any questions? while I'm thinking about it, I'll show you all how I cut myself. Not graphically. I'm not going to go crazy with it. Straight edge, holding it in place. You can see where this is going. Brought that knife right across the tip of my thumb because I wasn't paying attention. And it was a brand spanking new blade. It was sharpest. Anyway, don't do that. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's just enough of a wake-up call to be like, right, don't put your thumb in front of the knife, you dingus. Never cut toward yourself. You shut up. Sorry about that. Had to grab a drink real quick. Okay. All right. Nobody crafting. Nobody. Anything else doing? All right. I think then I'm going to call it an evening. I could, since I've already got it cut at a centimeter, I could make some bricks because I already have some blanks for bricks, and I could cut these. I think I will do that since I've got my. No, I'm gonna have to do something to hold these together and all that. And they're getting wiggly, and yeah, I'll do that when I'm feeling better. For now, I'm gonna leave the machine out because I will be getting to those soon. These will be cut at the depth to. I don't have one of my ship decks right here next to me. Which, oh yes, I do. So these are going to be cut at this depth so that they can be the mechanicals box for this. There's going to be a rudder. There would be a rudder. The rudder is just going to be attached to the bottom deck, just sticking off the back. Where this deck sticks over it is where that's going to be. And it's going to be, so I'm building the mechanicals box here. But on the next deck up, since the next deck's longer, the mechanicals box is within that cabin space. So I'm going to have to work around that. And that's where I was going to build a galley back at the back in that little space. But that's only going to leave me about that much room at the back. And I don't want to have to try to make that look like a kitchen. So I'm decided I'm putting the galley in that bigger space. And then I will need to follow that same dimension. I'll measure on the center line, the beam, and I will measure back from this mark here. This is that cargo hold space I talked about earlier. I'll measure back from this point to where my mechanicals box starts or exists, and I will measure that same distance in that other deck and build a box in there. And then I will do that same distance back on the other deck and put it in there. And then I will measure the top floor part, and that's where I'll put the steering wheel, the captain's wheel. That is for next week's video. And then the week after that, I expect to be doing cargo. I may instead actually shoot a video about cargo, and that's going to involve crates, barrels, jars, pallets, nets, things like that, and how I'm going to fit them into the ship. I don't actually know exactly how I'm going to do all those, so whatever. Yeah, that's it for now. Let me switch to the front camera. Oh, meanwhile, let me switch to the top camera, and then I can turn this light off over here on the side, because I didn't mention my... Why is my camera shaking? Stop that. That's weird. Didn't bump it or anything. I think it's blowing in the fan. All right, so... Oops, that is not... See what I mean about it's blinding? That's not what I meant to do. Let's switch to the one where I can show people. So, these are my patrons. Your name could be here. I could put your name in lights. Woo! These people keep the channel going, and I hugely, stupendously appreciate it. For example, Digital Calibrator came over this last week, or was that a week and a half ago, and helped me out with some push pins, and that's how I have a railing for the thing. So while I'm already up, DC, if you're still here, I will show you again how that railing turned out. So I can do that without this light. Hold on, let me turn this light off. And that is how it turned out. And once that's all painted brown, it'll look amazing. Okay, so I've also got Patrick Walther. Patrick Walther runs a channel called Hacksaw's Hobby Bunker. Easy for me to say. Does really great builds. Takes a lot of these old school. Used to take, I don't know what he's doing these days, but used to take a lot of these old school plastic kits, and some of them are still made. I say old school, but they've been made the same way for like 40, 50, 60 years, and modify them so they work in, I think he does horror games. I don't know. Excuse me. So post-apocalyptic stuff is what he does. That's right. So those are pretty cool. So go check out Hacksaw's Hobby Bunker. Dungeon Matron, that's Lisa. Lisa has her own Discord and has been such a huge super friend to the channel that the link to her Discord is in the down below this video, and you can go there. We talk about crafting, but you can do that on mine as well. So my Discord's down there as well. But she is also part of a channel that comes out on Wednesdays. They do a live stream every Wednesday, and that is called Just Flocking With You. And she does that with Kim from Questboard Terrain and Carl of Carl Makes Stuff. And then Solo Nick has two channels. One is Solo Nick, that's the name of the channel, and he does builds and stuff like what we're doing, okay, what I'm doing here, videos, not lives, but videos, and also has a second channel called, I always forget the name of this one, Climbing Moss, and Climbing Moss is his sort of man about town. He goes to concerts or he's traveled to other countries, things like that, and his videos about that. And that one's Climbing Moss. So those are both really good. And then there's Mia Geeked. Mia Geeked has a channel called Mia Geeked. So far only has one video, I think, but also is a member of Shadows of Arconia, and so is sometimes seen on Shadows of Arconia playing games on Twitch. And by games, I mean tabletop games. They do virtual tabletop games with each other from all over the country and all over the world. I think some of their players are in other countries. So that's all of those. Again, my Discord and Lisa's Discord are in the down belows. And I will switch here to the front, and I will talk to you about the, oh, y'all are so sweet. Thank you for saying that. The ship thing, it's just a matter of patience. It's like putting one pin on, one pin on, one pin on, one pin on. So those railings are turning out great. Like I said, I can't take any credit for the methodology. I saw it in somebody else's video, but I'm glad that many people seem to like it and that I can bring that to more people. It works for railings. It works for banisters on stairwells. It works for railings on ships. I originally, I think, saw it in a video about a pub. You could space them out a little more if you want it and make, like, if you remember my, if you're familiar with my city block blocks and the little railings I've got, you could make railings for those out of those instead of the brick railings that I made. I may do that at some point, but I don't really need any more of those blocks right now. Trying to think what else you could use for. Yeah, but the push pins as railing balusters, it works amazingly well. So I'm glad that I picked that trick up somewhere. But like I said, it's not mine. I can't take any credit. All right, so I have a bunch of these timbers. Thank you for reminding me what they're called. A bunch of these timbers ready to go for way more than I need, obviously, but I'll use them for something. So these will get used in next week's build of the mechanical section on the ship. Some of these may become crates and stuff for my cargo video as well. I never throw anything away. Not never, but I have a bunch of standing stones that I'm not ever going to build a standing stone. So I cut one up and got all of these planks to last quite a while. And you saw me. If I wasn't talking, that would have been 10 minutes, 20 minutes worth of work from being what used to be a stone to being these to being textured was less than 20 minutes. Less than a half an hour, including the texturing. So, yeah. Like I said, nothing I do is super complicated. It's just most of it's repetitive. It's a matter of once you learn the technique, you do it over and over and over and over again, and you have parts ready. And then you take those parts and you build them into other things. That's it. I just try to be chill and hang out and build stuff. And yeah. So that's what I do here. If you're interested in anything miniature, anything at all, from standees for games to role-playing game terrain to wargaming terrain, dioramas, shadow boxes, anything, fairy houses, any of that. If you build in miniature, I want to see it. Come to my Discord. Send me pictures. I want to see what you're doing. Yeah, come to my Discord anyway. Hang out and talk about this fun stuff. Okay, so this is Campaign Terrain. If it's your first time coming, welcome. Glad to have you. We'll see you next time. If it's your 100th time coming, welcome. Glad to have you. Thanks for coming back and being one of my long-term campaigners. So, thank you, campaigners. This has been Campaign Terrain. As ever, I've been your host, That Guy Cross. You're welcome in the basement at least every Sunday for now, but I think I'm going to be switching that. No, I'm going to be switching that to Saturday soon. Trademark. Don't steal. So I will be doing that relatively soon, and I will be doing it on Saturdays earlier than I do on Sundays. So instead of like 7 on Sundays, it will instead be on Saturdays at 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. Eastern Standard. Or actually Eastern Daylight Time for what we're in right now. You know what I mean? The East Coast. I feel like I'm missing something. I always feel like there's something I'm not saying. Anyway, so that's all I got for you tonight. I hope I answered the questions for LC about the Proxxon and specifically this thing. Brain, not work, fence, the fence on it, and the one that I built. And you can see what Carl was talking about in his live stream earlier. He was talking about 1 brick wide fits in these grooves. 1 brick wide fits in these grooves. And yeah, that is everything I got for tonight. So, as ever, thank you for coming to Campaign Terrain. I love you. We're all in this together. And until next time, I wish you luck in your campaign, whether that's on the tabletop or in real life. Thank you so much for coming. I'll see you next time.